Hello, my name is Woody. Thank you for listening to Change in the House of Pods, a podcast about Deftones. The strength of this podcast will, without a doubt, be the intelligence and eloquence of its guests. And boy, did I luck the hell up today. Brendan Garrone is the vocalist for Incendiary.
Oppression! Oppression! Oppression's coming in! The silent! The silent! The silent finally scream!
Their last album, Thousand Mile Stare, is one of the 10 best albums of the past decade. Hands down, don't at me. If you don't know their music, pause this shit right now. Go listen to Thousand Mile Stare by Incendiary. Change your freaking life. So Brendan was actually the first person that I reached out to be on this podcast, the first person that wasn't a coworker, because he tweeted out some hot takes about Deftones. He tweeted out that Diamond Eyes is better than White Pony, and I think he also tweeted out, or he retweeted somebody who was saying Deftones are better than Tool. So that certainly piqued my interest. And I gotta say, I got to talk about my favorite band with the lead vocalist from my other favorite band from the past few years. That is no small thing. And if I ever get around to making a highlight reel, this moment is absolutely going to be in it. Who do you think is the best beer pong player in Deftones?
What an awesome question.
That was cool as hell. I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation about Deftones. Thank you for listening to Change in the House of Pods. This is my conversation with Brendan Garrone from Incendiary. All right, so when did you get into Deftones?
Let's see. So the first Deftones record I got was Around the Fur. And so I imagine I got that right around when it came out. Was that like 2000 or no? That was that. What would that be? 98 or something like that?
Well, I have a quick reference here because I brought the CD with me.
Nice.
I think it's 96. I think it's 96, just off the top.
Yeah. So I got into that. That was the first Deftones record I heard, and the first Deftones record I got. And like at that time, I was really like I grew up playing the drums, and so that was one of the records that I was like trying to play the drums to and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was my first exposure to that band.
Do you remember the song? Do you remember the song that got you into it?
Yeah, I mean, well, like, you know, the goop-pop from the beginning, the first, I mean, that I was just like, yes. But I definitely distinctly remember, is it the, see, like I was telling you, like, I don't remember any fucking song title. You know, the one that starts with the drum beat? Do-do-do-do-da-do.
Yeah.
I remember being like, you know, in middle school and at my drum set and being like, I can't do this. And like distinctly remember being extremely frustrated trying to play that A beat and just like not being able to do it. Because I was like,
that's around
years old.
That's the title track. Yeah, that's the title track.
That's the title track. Right. Yeah. But no, like I distinctly remember that because like, you know, a lot of the albums that I got into at the time were like, I was trying to like, I would try to play the drums to them. I had like these big ass headphones that were like kind of noise canceling. And so, yeah, that was the first album I got from them. And that to this day is probably one of, if not my favorite albums.
Just period or just favorite Deftones album?
Both kind of, man. But yeah, specifically Deftones. Yeah.
What else were you listening to at that time?
I got really into like two things simultaneously. Like one was sort of like the more like punk stuff. So like I loved like Pennywise and stuff like that, like real fast music, like again, always tied to the drums. And then that was also around the time where I was like, that would be just before where I was starting to discover hardcore. So like once I heard like Strife, that was really like opened my eyes to hardcore at the same time that I was going to local shows. So Strife was sort of like massive to me. And then I was going to see like all my, like the local bands on Long Island, which was like a huge influence on me. And then I always loved like Bush. Bush is my shit. I still love him all this time.
Oh, really?
Ride for Bush. Oh, fuck yeah. And all the other stuff, you know, of that, like someone my age around that time, like I loved Pearl Jam, all that stuff. And definitely getting into like a lot of like, again, like punk, like almost like Punk-O-Rama, like compilation stuff, right? So like Millencolin and NoFX and all that shit. So that was like
you were
my
at Warped Tour like every summer.
I went to Warped Tour. I want to say I went once because I grew up on Long Island, and the Warped Tour, I don't think there was like, I could be wrong, but I don't think there was like a Long Island date back in the day. I think it was just Randall's Island. So I went to Randall's Island once, which is in New York City. And so like we schlepped in there. I want to say I was probably like 16 or 17 or something like that. But Long Island is just like black hole, man. Like you just like don't really leave when you grew up there. I mean, I haven't lived there for many years, but like, yeah, I was too busy. I was very into local music and the local scene. So I didn't really like do the thing where it's like, oh, I grew up going to the city to like, I didn't do that. It was all about what was going on with like local shows. You know what I mean? It was just Long Island was sort of insular and had such a great like heavy music scene that like you kind of didn't need to leave.
So were you playing the drums like through well you were like in middle school, I guess, at the time that Around the Fur dropped. So were you playing the drums then into high school, still like trying to
Totally. Yep. Yeah. So I mean, that was my instrument. I started playing like in 6th grade, played all through middle school, did the like drum set stuff, but then also played in school, like, you know, like school band.
Yeah.
Then played into high school, into college. And honestly, it's kind of a funny story. The only reason I sing in Incendiary is because when I started the band, I was living in the city and all my buddies were still in Long Island. And I was like, I don't want to like carry my drums back and forth from the city. I was like, I'm just going to sing because it's like, I just got to show up. That is seriously what happened. So when I started the band, I was like, here's the thing. I'm going to sing. And like one of my other buddies is going to play drums because like I don't feel like going back and forth. Then the rest is history, I suppose.
You got a mic cable over your shoulder and that's it. You walk in with your mic in your back pocket.
Exactly. Yeah. I got my SM58. That's all I need.
So is that, what band were you starting then, or what band were you in back then? Were you in a band?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was in a bunch of like local band, you know, like nonsense bands in high school. And then I did some like little things in college also. I went to school in New Hampshire, so I was like gone for 4 years and then I came back. And then right when I got back to New York is when I was like, I'm finally back in the same area as a lot of my friends. I'm ready to do something. And like, let's start it. And so that's where Incendiary came from. It was just like, I want to do a band with my friends. I don't want to play the drums anymore. And I'm just going to try my hand at singing.
That was roughly 2007.
2007. Yeah. So we're going on like 13 years now. We started in the summer of 2007.
That's crazy. So
I know, man.
Up through that time, up to the time that you started Incendiary, were you in mostly hardcore bands, or were you in bands where you were playing with other types of music?
My first band in high school was more of like a punk Deftones, Descendants kind of thing. You know what I mean? Just like pop, like older pop punk kind of, just like regular bad, like always bad. And then throughout college, I was in like hardcore bands. I played in more of like a pop punk band for a while with some people I met up there. And then the other bands were all pretty much hardcore. Yeah. I mean, a lot of that is because of not only is it like the kind of music that I liked, but it was also our friend group was into that too.
Yeah.
And then also like, if you're a hardcore band, like the barrier for entry is lower because it's just like, let's just be noisy and, you know, be shitheads. Like no, you know, some of my friends were and still are like very talented. And I was a good drummer, but I'm not Buddy Rich. So like it was a lower bar to entry and we just wanted to like hang out and get drunk and play shows and stuff like that. So I look back on that time like really fondly.
That's cool as hell. I asked that question too related to Deftones because I wonder like if anybody else in your circle of friends or anybody else in your group of friends was into the band.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in high school, always, you know, I kind of fell out of them for a while, to be honest with you. Like, and I had to go back. Like, I'll give you an example. Like when the Self-Titled came out and when Saturday Night Risk came out, like that like lost me. Like I wasn't like I wasn't there on release day, like checking it out and stuff. I think at that time, like I was both like really into just hardcore and then I was always really into more like emo stuff, not emo like My Chemical Romance, Swoop Hair, but like Midwest emo. So like American Football, Braid, Promise Ring, like that kind of emo scene. And I kind of fell out of them for a while. And then one of the reasons that I started to get back into them again and just like fall in love with them kind of is from a lot of my friends that are still in Incendiary. So all 5 of us are huge Deftones fans.
Oh, word.
honestly, like we all like roughly the same music, but for all 5 of us to like love a band there's actually not a ton where like we all agree on, and they've always been that one. So then like, you know, always listening to them like in the van or whatever. And like I said, like Deftones self-titled, it passed me by. I knew like Hole in the Earth and stuff, like the single, but it just like, I wasn't like a big focus of mine. And then like I went back to a lot of that stuff. White Pony I always listened to in high school too. Like that was always like, obviously, because it was like probably still is their biggest record. But yeah, that middle period, like I discovered, I was late to the game on Saturday Night Wrist, which I actually think is like their most underrated album.
Talk about that a little bit.
I think the album's great. Like it's kind of weird. I think it came out in like a weird time of the band's career. And I think they had some like tumultuous kind of personal stuff going on. I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think it had a lot of commercial success. But I just think the album in its entirety is really underrated, which I would sort of juxtapose with the self-titled record, which like has the single, but I don't find myself listening to the self-titled one that much. Because now I feel like we're coasting towards like ranking Deftones albums. Which
No. I'm definitely not
I can get into.
You want to do that?
Okay.
You want to get into it?
I'm down. Yeah, I'm down because I have some hot takes on this, man.
Well, I'm prepared to hear them because I am scared as shit to rank a Deftones album. It changes from day to day, and I mean it's like 1A, 1B at any given moment they could shuffle around. But if you want to go with it, like I definitely want to hear it. So
I won't go through all of them, I guess, but like I think Diamond Eyes is their best album, and I think I've heard in the past some people agreeing with me, but I just think it's their best album. I would say probably I always try to look at it unobjectively too. Like my favorite is probably Around the Fur because like that's what I grew up with,
sure.
And that's what like resonates with me and means the most to me. White Pony's probably a better record, I guess. And then I would probably go Saturday Night Wrist, then Adrenaline, then maybe then Koino Yokan gets in there, and then self-titled, and then Gore probably.
I have seen a lot of different rankings by Deftones fans before, but I don't think I've ever seen one or heard of one that unique. Certainly,
you think it's that wild?
I do. I think I don't think Diamond Eyes being a favorite is too crazy.
Okay.
But having Saturday Night Wrist as high as it is, you know, I think a lot of people low key do like that album.
I think so too.
But
I think 100%.
I think I kind of lost it because I was still torn. Like I was into them still super heavy at that particular moment in time. So I kind of was aware of how disjointed the band was and sort of turned away from that. And plus I think the song with Surge is a little weird. I just think it's a little weird.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's different. But other than that, like, I don't know that I've heard that. Well, Koi also being ranked as low. Like everybody shits on Gore, which kind of bums
Everyone
me out.
shits on Gore. I don't think Gore is that bad. Koi, no, I have to. Now I'm like, I need like a pen and paper. Like I need to write this shit down. That's why I should have left it as just my hottest take of saying Diamond Eyes is their best record. Koi's higher up there too, because it's also like there is what I feel is like their, like if you're looking at their most complete albums, like their best records. Like I was telling you, like I'm a record guy. I'm not really like a singles guy. There's that, and then there's like listenability. So like, what do I listen to more? I listen to Koi more than Saturday Night Wrist for sure.
Really?
Definitely. Yeah.
But you ranked Saturday Night Wrist higher.
I know. That's why like those might flip flop for me. I'm trying to do this in my head too.
No, that's cool.
You know?
No judgment. Judgment. Just wanted to make sure I'm straight.
I'll stick with my top 3 because it gets a little wonky from there. But I'll go Diamond Eyes, I guess White Pony, and Around the Fur. But I could see those two flip flopping.
We might have to get really nerdy and do like because one of the reasons that I even contacted you to begin with to join me in this conversation was because of your hotter take about Diamond Eyes being better than White Pony, and I almost feel like we should go song for song like in a versus battle and just run it down the list like that. But another thing that you tweeted out that I thought was really striking was I wish I had the tweet. I should have the tweet right in front of me. If I was prepared, I would. But you were talking about the first album and how you were like obsessed with the energy that a first album, not Deftones in particular, but like a band's first album has, and how like there's something about, but yet when you go through those rankings, like Adrenaline kind of falls to the end.
No, I know. I mean, like Adrenaline, I guess again, like that's not the album that I put on. That's where I get so biased. Like I know that it sounds like it's the same thing, but to me that it's like not. Like I think I don't find myself, listen, at that time they were young and like it's cool and it was like super innovative, and they have like, you know, Deftones is interesting because they get bundled with nu metal, obviously. And then you have people that write them off as nu metal, and then people that are like, well, it was really more that it was a time and a place for them where they got lumped into this scene, but they were always bigger and better than that. That's what I think. I think it was a latter take. Now, they definitely have some nu metal songs. They definitely have some nu metal riffs. But like overall, they're a lot more than that. I'm assuming you agree.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I'm wondering if you were into any nu metal bands.
Yes, I was a big Korn guy.
Yeah.
Slipknot missed me completely.
Yeah.
I thought it was whack when it came out personally. I always thought the drumming was so sick. And I just like, when we were like on one of our last like things, like I was like, all right, because our drummer likes Slipknot. I was like, all right, I'm 36 years old. I don't care what's cool and what's not cool. Like could be objective about anything. Let's listen to Slipknot. And I just don't think it's that good. I don't think it's that heavy. So that's like the big one that I feel like everyone loves and everyone's like okay about saying it now, but they do nothing for me. I was a big Korn guy. You know, when I was a kid, that first Limp Bizkit album has some sick songs, obviously. But I never got like into, and I was I love that Seven Dust record. Linkin Park missed me completely. Don't like it at all. And then I never got really like into like the lower like Cold Chamber and stuff like that. Like that all missed me.
It's so funny that Cold Chamber is always like the first objectively shitty band that everybody
it's too far wherever it's yeah.
It is. It's
some of those bands are bad, you know what I mean? But yeah, I Korn at the time, like the other thing that happens is like when people argue about or just like debate stuff like that, there is something about, and I guess it's kind of going back to what I was saying about like your first record that you were talking about. There is always going to be this stuff that you happen to have gotten into first, which you're always going to love the most, right? Like when you're, especially at that time, like you're talking, not to be like the old guy thing, but like there's no internet. So that whole time period, to me, like the thing that I almost miss about it and look back at finally, and this sounds funny, is ignorance. You have no idea what's going on. You're a kid, you're 15 years old, you live in your parents' house, and it's not like you have this access to music at your fingertips. You're walking into a record store, you're spending a ridiculous amount of money. Right back, and it was like $17 a CD, and
those big ass like plastic cases too.
Exactly, and then like the do not steal it. So it's like the thing, and then you're just like,
I hope fit these in my Jinkos.
Yeah, right on, yeah. And then you're like, I hope this record's good because I haven't heard it.
Yeah,
obviously. So there is this beautiful ignorance to being of that age, and the reason I'm happy that I grew up in that, like at least I got a good amount of time before the internet took off, because you just like you didn't know things were going on. I look back, like I'll give you another example. Show flyers. You know, oh, this show happened, and I was like, I didn't know about that. I could have totally went. It's not like I was 11 years old. I was 16 years old, but I didn't hear about it. I didn't know about it. So I think there's something quaint about that. You know what I mean? Just in terms of like figuring stuff out. And I think had I heard Slipknot younger, or I think I was just a little too old for them, but like maybe I would have loved it. And Korn was the same way. That's just what I happened to have heard first. And I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, it sounds like with Linkin Park, Slipknot, like those may have just come along a little bit after you were into that scene at that time, or whatever was going on at that time.
It did. And then that's what it was, and I think it was like I was really getting into hardcore, and like I said, like the local scene at that time, and so I almost was kind of like past that, and so and when you're a kid, you're like, nah, that's lame. Like I'm into hardcore, that stuff's lame and whack. So, and then you lose that as you get older. You're like, I don't care what's cool.
Okay, I just want to listen to what. Yeah. I want to listen to what I like.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Speaking of that, that mystery. I feel like Deftones probably benefited from that a lot.
Yep.
What do you think about that in terms of just the, you had to buy a magazine if you wanted to read about them, and then they really were like the third or fourth band mentioned in the magazine because it was always Korn and Limp Bizkit, and somebody else was always sort of nudging their way in because they were a little more mainstream. Deftones were a little more left to center. Did that benefit them in the long haul as much as the difference in their music?
I think the fact that Chino is so unique is probably the main reason they were able to have a sustainable career. And I think, so that's the first thing. I just think that like fans of Deftones just like resonate with him. Like he just has this magnetic style that, there are some vocalists that are just like, oh, nobody sounds like this guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are so many examples where it's like, oh, this guy kind of sounds like this and this guy sounds like this. But like, if you think of like as a overly dramatic example, like Freddie Mercury, like nobody sounded like Freddie Mercury ever.
Doubt. Yeah.
Chino has the uniqueness where I think he kept it so interesting and that fans just like kept coming back to it because he had this magnetic draw. The second thing I would say about that is I think the Deftones, they always struck me as being extremely self-aware. Like they never seem to like, and what I mean by that is like they rode the coattails of the nu metal scene in a lot of ways, but were self-aware enough to be like, yeah, but like we're kind of like we do our own thing, and I think that they knew that they had like they were swept up in it, but I think that they ultimately like weren't beholden to that stuff because it's you can be a part of a scene without always sonically having to be like perfect about it. And so I think that they were able to innovate enough and keep things fresh where I think it's harder for a lot of the other bands because frankly, like I don't think they're as talented as musicians, right? Like I think like Steph Carpenter has his own thing and is like, I know he's like a huge Meshuggah head now and stuff like, but I think him and Abe and Chino were always able to like stay kind of like one step ahead of the pack. And I think realized, and again, I don't know those guys, but like, this is what it always seemed to me that they being self-aware enough where it's like, if we get stuck too deep into this, we'll never get out. And so they did things and they innovated and they did weird shit. And I think they took some like, like some of the risks, quote unquote, like some of the stuff on Saturday Night Wrist, for example, is fucking weird. You know what I mean? Like they were always kind of doing headier things and it resonated with people. And I think mainly because of the way that Chino sounds, I think it always resonated with people. And he had this way to be appealing to a more diverse audience, because when you are only screaming, right? When you only are doing a certain type of vocals, that will always limit your band. Always. Because as you get bigger and bigger as a band, the vocals become more and more important. And I'm not just saying that, like, it's so obvious. It's like the bands who can do well, their singers are incredibly talented and dynamic. And so I think if you're just doing like those types of vocals, you hit a ceiling much lower than if you have the range and the dynamic style that Chino does. So they were just able to get out of it. And I mean sort of like getting stuck in with like why isn't Deftones Static X or something? It's because of their talent. You know what I mean? And I do think that they were aware of the situation that they were in.
It's interesting to me to think about what the standout parts about their musicianship like what those things are, because I think if you removed, for most bands, and we've talked about this at the radio station where I work, like you take out the singer, it's a different band. You take out the singer, it's you might as well not call it the same band, because it's not the same band, unless you can get one of those sound-alikes like Journey did or whatever. But I think with Deftones, it might also be that same way with Stefan and Abe, because like without that bop, like it's not Deftones, and without that chunky riff. Am I wrong in that, or is it?
No, I think they do have like a signature sound. I mean, I think like the other thing that I think is another secret to their success, to be perfectly honest with you, man, which is kind of similar to what you're saying, is I think there is an inherent tension in the songwriting in that band.
Mm.
I mean, that's been well documented.
Sure.
But that often leads to good music. Like, and I don't even mean personally, like, I don't even mean the fact that like Steven Tyler and Joe Perry hate each other. Like, I mean more like you can tell that Steph was always trying to do something a lot of times that was different than what Chino, and maybe, I don't know about like Abe, but like what Chino wanted to do. But sometimes that leads to good music. And I've always believed that about Deftones. And I think that like that tension where it's like, Steph wants to make everything like super heavy and crunchy. And like maybe Chino is like way more like heady and he's a little more of like an experimental musician, right? Like, especially if you talk about all of his side projects, that like that tension often leads to really interesting music. And I believe that like across the board, honestly, not just with them.
Is that true in your band?
I think that's part of it. 100%. Yeah. I mean, with Incendiary, yes, I think one of our like secret sauces or whatever, or like the things that helped us, is that we had a fairly diverse palette. And so like, especially between like the two like main like music songwriters with like Brian and Rob, like they listened to different stuff, and like we were never a band like we don't jam. Like, it's not like, hey, let's get in the studio, like let's get in the room and jam out. It's like we had to be like, here is the part, like here is what, either like Brian or Rob like are going to present a part to the band, and we're going to work on that. Like, it's a very like, I don't want to say tense, but kind of tense. Like, we didn't have this like thing. And so that ultimately like helped, because like, yeah, I think there's a competition, like a competitive aspect. And I also think it's an aspect of like everyone's trying to bring their A game. And so it keeps things not boring, right? If everyone is like doing into the same shit, it's just like this is derivative music. But like, if you have one guy trying to go for this, another guy going for this, sometimes the compromise there, in my experience, leads to good things. And a lot of bands are like that. Like, a lot of bands have these musicians or main songwriters that are like all into different kinds of things, and they all bring like their different flavor, right? Like, this is just a random example off the top of my head, but like Flea and Red Hot Chili Peppers, who, again, it's a random example, but like you have this guy coming from this weird funk background, and all of a sudden he's like going into this like rock band, and that stuff like comes out, you know what I mean? So there's I think there's a lot of that in the Deftones too, that like tense type of songwriting.
In terms of like growth, because you touched upon that just a little bit in from album to album, I think something that they've talked about a lot is how much different, like they're always trying to do something that's different than the last thing that they did. Are they doing that successfully? Like, you make music, you've been in a band that has, I think, grown, like the sound is evolving and getting tighter and different, right? So like, I think you've got a little bit better of a gauge on like, are they musically growing? Is it just being different? What is their evolution like in terms of?
I mean, like, I think that they've gotten to be better songwriters. I found their last couple records interesting because I think they write almost catchier songs now. And I think they write often like more palatable songs. I don't want to use the word poppier because that's not necessarily it, but like even if you look at the last single that they released, like from Ohms, like what just came out, like that's like a pretty like straightforward, I don't know what the word is, song, right? Like, and so they've definitely evolved, and I don't know if that's like Sergio or whatever, but like the other thing that I think is extremely noticeable, in my opinion, is Steph getting into like metal and Meshuggah, and like he's talked about Meshuggah, and like if you listen to Diamond Eyes and Koi, like like you can tell what he's trying to do. It's like it sounds like a fucking Gent album, like all the stuff that he's writing, and like to me, and like if you know metal, it's like it's so blatantly obvious that he's just trying to write like sick, heavy shit, and that's what I mean about the tension of like Chino probably trying to like keep it on the rails and being like, dude, we're not from Gothenburg, Sweden. Let's keep it on the rails here. Like, I think that's funny. Yeah, they've progressed, but that's the thing, man. Like, that's the secret sauce to a band's career. You progress steadily without completely changing and alienating your original fans. Here's a question, like, back to you. Like, if you're the guy that got into Deftones, maybe when we did, or maybe a little earlier, I don't know when you did, but like if you're like an adrenaline, around the fur, like head, are you listening to the new Deftones stuff and you're like, fuck, this new shit stinks? Like, I don't think you are. I think people more or less are like kind of have been, I mean, at least Koi and Diamond Eyes were well received. Diamond Eyes was like universally well received and well rated. So I think that's a sign of like you're not having these crazy right and left turns where it's like completely throwing off your legacy fans.
Yeah, it's hard to be certain because I feel like so often you catch wind or the ones who are hating are the one you see first, right? It's like, oh, that sucks.
Sure.
Or the people who are just like, is it going to be heavy? That sort of thing.
Yep.
But it's hard to deny, like there's always been, those influences have always been, I think, there to some extent. Like it's well documented how Abe is a big Stuart Copeland fan, or like how and I didn't really listen to The Cure much until actually recently, and I'm like, holy shit, there's a lot of just phrasing and like the way Robert Smith phrases that are like, oh my god, I know that's Chino. Or
dude, it's funny that you say that because I'm like late pass on The Cure and like really listening to them too. I've been doing the same thing. That's really weird. And just being like, oh, this band is great. And I never gave them the time of day, really. But yeah, I do notice that. The other thing I was going to say to you is you can also learn a lot from a band and their influences by what they choose to cover. Like, and if you look at the B-Sides album, it's like, it's all over the road with the Smiths cover and like
Jawbox.
That's so cool. You know what I mean? Jawbox cover. I mean, that cover's awesome. Right.
Yeah.
So like, it's interesting too, because you could see how sort of eclectic it is. I think at the end of the day, they like a lot of different styles of music, and they are able to, again, I think it's about evolution without crazy left and right turns where it's like, if I'll give you an example that's like new metal too, right? Like you got Korn out there trying to do like dubstep stuff.
Right.
And so if you're the legacy Korn guy, right, you're the Life is Peachy guy, you're like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
That's exactly what the Deftones aren't. Like they don't have these crazy left turns. I think part of that is the way that Chino sounds, but also it's like that's progression versus these crazy pivots.
I want to ask you about a live show. Have you seen them live before?
Yes, I have. I've seen them live 3 times. I have 2 good live show stories, if you'd like.
Yes, please.
So we got to play with them on the same festivals twice, and so that was awesome because I love them and everyone in our band does. So we were all stoked. So the first time was at Grosrock in Belgium, and we were like full on like psyched. And like, I mean, like literally in the first couple rows, like total fanboys, like in the crowd, had already played that day, hanging out and was watching them. It was great. And that was the show that Chino fell off the stage and broke his leg. I think he broke his foot. So he fell and he fucking fell off the stage in front. And then he finished the whole show and was like limping around. And we were just like, oh shit, Chino just fell off the stage. And then like I saw it on all the like, you know, press and like, you know, music publications and stuff. So that was pretty wild. And then the best time that I saw them was we played with them at Hellfest 2 years ago in France. And their set was like on the main stage as the sun was setting. And it was like, we were all just like, this is amazing. Like they sounded incredible. And it was just one of those like, oh, I'm lucky to be here and like be doing this. It was a very good memory I have of watching them. It was really, really cool.
I feel like they're the sunset band. Like
I agree.
Anytime that I've seen them at an outdoor venue, it feels like, whether or not they're the headliner, it feels like they're the sunset band. I saw them. I got to interview them once, and that was at Knotfest in Wisconsin. And it was like the most amazing storm that rolled in when they were playing. It was like, it was like they were calling for it. You know what I mean?
That's so cool.
There's something about that experience, right? Like there's something about being outside with a great band who really, and then the sky changes. You know what I mean? Like it's moving. It
was exactly like that. And it was funny too, because like Hellfest are you familiar with Hellfest?
I know how huge it is.
It is huge.
And like,
if you ever can just randomly go to the coast of France one year, at my age, not that I'm 70 years old, but like going to a 3-day music festival to me sounds like going to the dentist basically, but I would go to this. Like it's so sick because right after the Deftones played, it becomes like real Hellfest and they start shooting off these fucking all this fire and pyro that goes like throughout the night, and it when it gets dark and it's like turns into this whole other thing. And it was like really sick because after the Deftones, I watched them. I went over to see Watain, that black metal band, and they were like playing in the dark with like all the fire and stuff. I was like, this is awesome.
That's cool.
And it's just like a wild, and there's like obviously like 80,000 people there, and it's a wild experience that we were lucky to play. And it was really, really cool. So Deftones kind of closed out the like chill vibe of it, and then it turned pretty wacky. And then Limp Bizkit played that year, which was interesting. So yeah, it was a good year to be there.
It was interesting.
Yeah, they were awful.
Really?
Well, you know what it was? Let me rephrase that. It was bizarre because they're a good band. Fred seems a little wild, but what's weird about it was they would play a song, right? So like, let's say they're going to play Faith. And then the DJ in the band plays like full regular songs, and the crowd, just like for the crowd. Like if you give it a perfect example, right? So they're going to play Faith, and then they'll play like a Dr. Dre song. Like they'll play like Chronic, and like, but like the whole song, and just like literally hitting play, and people are like dancing and like singing along, and then they'll play, you know, another song, and then they'll play like a Beastie Boys song, like over the PA. It was
that's weird.
So weird. And it's like, what are we paying you guys for? So it was like, I would say 30 to 40% of the set was just, and again, I don't mean covering, I mean literally just hitting play on the actual song. And then they would play another song. It was
sounds like
really,
more
really, really
to
weird.
that story. That definitely sounds like there's more to that story, because that doesn't seem. I mean, I've seen them a couple of times, and that wasn't. I mean, they played a show. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. I mean, it could have been. Who knows? I mean, they could have had technical problems or whatever, or they were phoning it in or whatever. I mean, like they were the last band to play. It was late. Who knows? I'll give the guys the benefit of the doubt for sure.
All right. I think we should do it. I think we should go track for track. We can do it fast. We don't have to. I don't want to draw it out and like belabor the issue, but I think we should do it. But do you want to do it versus style, I guess, would be like pick your contestant, or do you want to go like track list order for Diamond Eyes versus White Pony?
You want one song from each?
We're gonna go one song from each, one song to go against another song, and then we can decide which one is better.
Okay.
That's shitty.
This is
but it's
so
not
hard
like
though, because like White Pony is like
that's
this
the point.
Like, classic album. Everyone's gonna freak out, man. God, everyone's gonna hate me. Now I'm second guessing myself here. God. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. I'll represent White Pony, and you've got Diamond Eyes. Then, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna pull up the track list too.
Sure. And we're gonna go like original. Is it 10 or 11? Like no Back to School. I'm not gonna throw Back to School in there.
Yep. Well, there's 11 tracks on Diamond Eyes.
Okay, so we're 11 and 11 then. I think. Yeah, we're 11 and 11.
Yeah.
All right. Who's your first contender? I
feel like you're setting me up to lose this.
I
feel like you've been planning this for a while.
I have not.
And you're like, all right, idiot, here we go.
I was talking to my wife last night. I was like, you know what would be fucking funny? let's do a versus with Diamond Eyes, because it is a pretty hot take, but I don't think you're far off. I think it's hella. I think it's going to be hella tight because, man, Diamond Eyes is a great record, right?
Okay.
It's really good. So all right, you're up first.
Yeah, so is White Pony, man.
It really is.
Okay, so I'll give you a track. Let me think. I'll give you a track that I think is like a deeper cut on the album that kicks ass. So I'll go the last track. This Place Is Death. I love that song. What is it about This Place Is Death that you... I just like the chorus. I think it's great. It's like every song is kind of like low key heavy. I just love it. I love like how atmospheric a lot of the like really great Deftones songs are. And then I got another one on deck. I think that is a classic closer. In fact, a lot of ways it's like Pink Maggot, which is a 7.5 minute. Right. It's a bong ripper because you're floating through that song for a long time. And while it's great and did spawn one of my favorite new metal songs of all time in Back to School, which we're not including in this competition, I'm going to go ahead and give you This Place Is Death. I think you're right. Pink Maggot is awesome. Yep. But yeah, I think This Place Is Death gets the nod there. So one up. All right. What's your next contender? Let's just do the opening tracks. All right. Diamond Eyes. Diamond Eyes. That was the lead single, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Rock? Wait, was it Rocket Skates was the first single? I don't know for sure. That's half the reason why I wanted to have this podcast, so I could learn things. So hell yeah. But do I have to go with the opening song, or can I pick a different one? No, you can pick a different one. All right. So you're going Diamond Eyes. I'm gonna go change. Here because I feel like change is way better. I feel like I need to get on the board, so I'm gonna go change. Yeah, you're on the board, dude. I think that's like another like change is another like vocal standout. Yeah. The other thing about Diamond Eyes though, like it's such a great way to start an album. Yeah. Like, it's so sick. 1-1. All right. I'm going to take a turn since I scored the last point. We're going to go make it take it. I'm going to go with the opener of White Pony. I'm going to go, and I don't even know how to pronounce it still after all these years. Feiticeira. Oh, yeah. Yep. Man, talk about one of my all-time favorite, just kick-ass. I mean, the opening lyrics are "fuck, I'm drunk." Like, let's go. I know. That's so sick. Song. I feel like I'm seen The Butcher. Ooh, you're gonna go Butcher on this one. I guess. I mean, I don't know because I love that track. I love the. You've seen The Butcher. It's what the kids say. It fucks. Like that is one of the sexiest songs of all time. Yep. Yeah, it's dope. It's dope. I'm gonna give you. You've seen The Butcher. But you. All right. I'm going to give it to you only because it's not only one of the sexiest songs of all time, it's also one of the sexiest videos of all time. I think they play it a lot more, which means I think it's more widely received. Yeah. All right. So now it's your ball. Okay. I mean, this is my ace in the hole because I think it's incredible and it's a testament to the kind of band that Deftones is. I'm going Sex Tape because I just think it's crazy that they can drop in essentially a a pop ballad on their whatever sixth record and just drop it in like towards the end. I mean, I think that song is amazing. What would you compare that to on White Pony?
There's no comparison. There's nothing. I think the closest thing that I could get would be Digital Bath.
Yep. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I think Sex Tape is more of a love song, though. It's got more of a, not
100%.
It's got more of a love song quality, whereas Digital Bath is just like futuristic. It's just it's just, I don't know. It's Tron. You know what I mean? It's Blade Runner. It's just a different time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This one I'm biased on because Sex Tape is one of my favorite Deftones songs ever.
All right, we're gonna go draw on this one because I think it's hard to just say no to Digital Bath. That's the only.
Digital Bath is such a sick song.
All right, you can go again. I'm gonna let you go again. What do you want to pull on this one?
Well, let's go. Let me keep it. I don't want to go too deep cut. What about Rocket Skates? I think that's a beatable track. It's a good single. I don't think it's the best song on the record. This is the one that, and me and you should like check this after, but like I think this was their first single on this record, but I could be wrong.
You could be right though. I think there's a very good chance. I definitely remember the video, and I feel like there's nothing as much as like Elite won a Grammy and it knocks, and Korea I think is like the epitome of what a Deftones song is. It's got that bop.
That's a cool way of phrasing it. Dude, I had no idea Elite won a Grammy. Absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
My understanding is that Chino didn't go because he didn't think they were going to win. And the rest of the guys showed up. So they
mean, like, how cool is that? That's so sick. Like, if you can't have, like, anything cooler. And not to, like, derail anything, but, like, I got to be honest with you. The other reason why, especially, like, the five of us in my band, like, love them so much, they just seem cool as fuck. Like, have you ever followed them on social media or something? Like, they play beer pong and stuff. It's like drinking, and they have like all their craft beers and stuff. It's funny to me to still be like that in a band for that long, and like be able to just kind of like stay in the pocket and like party and hang out, but like, you know, they're not like going completely ape shit. Like, I just think that they just seem like awesome guys to hang out with. When we saw them playing beer pong, because like it's kind of like an inside joke with Incendiary. Like I love playing beer pong. We like all do. So we'll play in like a hotel room and set it up. It's like total shithead stuff. But we were like, did you guys see this? Blah, blah, blah. They just seem like really cool guys. And something about not going to because you're just like, nah, there's no chance we're going to win that. That's like very funny to me.
Who do you think is the best beer pong player in Deftones?
What an awesome question. It's got to be Abe, right?
I think it has to be. The precision that he has to like swing his arms with, swinging with a beer, like there's a similarity there.
Because Steph seems like more of a weed guy.
Yes.
To say the least.
Yes.
So yeah, man, I'm going Abe.
I think
I would love to play them. I would love to play them in beer pong. Me and the guitar player, Brian Audley, are teammates for going on over a decade now. We are a formidable opponent. So, really? Yeah, absolutely. So I would feel
you left side, he's right side. Are you like that serious about it?
So I mean, I'm left side usually because I'm left-handed. So I'm not trying to be like knocking into him. So I'm the southpaw. Brian is 6'5", so he's got the arc going, and it's like, you know, Isaiah Thomas and Bill Lambier out there. We're sinking shots. Yeah. So
unfuckwithable. That's awesome.
I would love to play them. So Deftones, if you listen to this, I would love to play you guys in beer pong. I think that would be a good time. Didn't mean to derail our battle here.
I don't think we need to go any further. I think we can call it a draw because it was just really for the love of the game anyways. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do want to ask you at least one more question. Now, I was listening to Chino was on a pod not long ago, or maybe it was a long time ago. I don't know. But he said that the only reason he tweets out YouTube links to songs is because he thinks that that's like the best thing that a fan could get from him. It's like shit that he likes. Right. Mm-hmm. So that being the case, in that spirit, can you give me 3 recommendations of absolutely anything? Music, art, movie, writer, photographer, architecture, whatever it is that you're into. three
Sure.
recommendations across the board. Old or new, doesn't have to be from. Like,
Okay. Absolutely. There is a. Let me think about this. There's a band called Somerset Thrower from Long Island, and they're doing sort of like the post-hardcore kind of like in that late 90s time when like all the dudes in hardcore bands were putting together like rock band, like Quicksand being the best example, but like it's kind of got that almost college rock kind of sound, and they just nail it, like absolutely nail it. So I'm going to go Somerset Thrower. They're from Long Island. I think everyone would enjoy them. Just kind of like almost straight up rock. They're great. Let me think of what else. I'm going to try to be a little diverse here. I will go a book that I read. I've been reading a lot. So these can be super random, right?
Yeah. Anywhere you want.
Okay. I'm going to go a book. It's called The Outlaw Ocean by Ian Urbina. And it's about, what goes on in international waters. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. So a lot of crazy stuff around essentially indentured servants / like slaves that are on these fishing trawls, like way out in the water, in international waters, obviously, that like almost never come into dock and just have ships come to them for supplies and stuff, that are fishing illegally and like contributing to the overfishing sort of problem that's happening. And it's just overall about like the concept of the tragedy of the commons, which is like land and things that are owned by all of humanity and nobody's actually policing. So everyone is just kind of robbing it blind. And he like goes out on these like fishing ships for like a month at a time, just in the worst conditions ever. And it's shocking because you're like, what year is this? And it's like, oh, this was like 2018. It's just an incredible sort of piece of journalism and travel writing. And then let me think of what else I can think about. I'm trying to do like a music, a book, maybe like a show. I'll do a podcast. How about that?
Right.
This is not like a unknown podcast, but I'm a big Sam Harris fan. Sam Harris is like a neurobiologist and sort of like a public intellectual, if you will. And I think he has on a lot of brilliant people. And it's one of those podcasts where it's actually the podcast that I pay for. It's like a subscription. But he just has a lot of really brilliant people on. And like, as he gets more popular, and again, this is not like a secret pod, he's massive, but like for any of people listening that's never checked him out, like if you're just looking to kind of like generally get smarter, I think he's a brilliant man. And so I think it's like a really interesting podcast to listen to. So that's music, book, and podcast.
That's kick-ass.
Kind of
That's
how I
awesome.
roll.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Well, I still got a little bit of my chat with Brendan to share with you, but I wanted to point out how spot on I think his take on Deftones' longevity was. And I really thought what he had to say about them coming out of the nu metal scene was extremely perceptive. This right here.
You can be a part of a scene without always sonically having to be like perfect about it.
That's hella smart, and something that I think is lost on fans sometimes when we lump things together or categorize them. I also want to say Brendan was such a sport for nerding out with me, doing a little White Pony versus Diamond Eyes battle. I thought that was really cool. I thought it was really cool to hear how he came up as a drummer, how he eventually became the vocalist for Incendiary, and I think it's cool as shit that the whole band loves Deftones. I mean, I might not have even started this podcast if I actually had 4 friends who like this band. It's cool as hell. So thank you again, Brendan. Your take on Deftones was insightful, and I had an absolute blast speaking with you. And Abe, Frank, the gauntlet has been thrown. Brendan and Brian from Incendiary have issued a beer pong challenge. Should you choose to accept it, please let me come. I could do the play-by-play or something. Just want to hang out. So I did keep the tape rolling before we let go to make sure I didn't miss anything. And Brendan actually asked me a couple of questions about Ohms. The song had just come out when we spoke, and we talked about Eros and Chino's side projects. Have a listen. I
want to hear what is your thoughts on Chino's side projects?
I love Team Sleep. That's my favorite.
Okay. I think that's the most popular answer.
Really? Because I feel like everybody I talk to likes Crosses.
Yep. Okay. I like all 3. I actually think the Palms record is my favorite.
Do you?
Yep. That's my favorite.
All undeniably good.
I'm not trying to like interview you now, but like I just have like something like, what do you think is going to happen with Eros? And like, do you like the song Smile? And what do you think about the record?
I have no idea. Honestly,
Me neither.
I thought it would come out. If it came out, I thought it would come out during the pandemic. I was at Dia de los Deftones when they live debuted Smile, and it was
that's awesome.
It was really cool. But as far as like, what does that album sound like? I know that's not completed. I don't think that they would complete it because it seems like that moment in time is sort of gone. You know what I mean?
Totally agree.
I asked Chino when I did get to interview them if they were ever going to like do a studio version of Say It Ain't So, because it's one of my favorite covers, period. Like their version of Say It Ain't So is bananas, right? And he was like, nah, man, time and place. We're done with that. I was like, okay, well, that's probably the mentality, I think, with especially being as heavy as that time was, you know what I mean? And the fact that they came out right after and wanged the fuck out with Diamond Eyes. Like, I think they're probably gonna leave it.
I love the forward looking aspect. I always feel that's like a sign of success, in my opinion. It's like, we did that, we're on to the next thing. I love that. What do you think of the new song? And then I'll shut up.
I love it. I was intrigued by it. Initially, I was like, this sort of sounds like a Baroness riff, like Baroness light, or like a Fuzzy Incubus song. And now that I've listened to it like a bajillion times, I was like, that's a Deftones song. And like, this makes sense and it's cool.
So I like it. I don't love it. The guitar tone kind of threw me for a loop. I'm expecting like that real chug, and it's like it has that lead that's like a little bit non-distorted, but I gave it a couple of chances. We were texting about it with Incendiary, like my guys in the band, and like we were all going through it. I think the consensus is everyone really likes it. That's what it seems to be, but I'm very excited for the album, man.
All right, that's it for Changing the House of Pods this week. My name is Woody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Deftones, and thank you to Brendan Garrone. Now go listen to Incendiary or Ohms. It's your life.